Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. And today, as we're looking at some Seikos made in Japan, I thought I'd ask the Facebook group. And by the way, if you haven't joined the Facebook group, the link is in the description, so check it out below. I thought I'd ask the group what is their favorite Japanese watch under the $500 mark. So there's the question. And this was posted last night, so we've had about, I think about 12 hours. Oh no, it says 17 hours here. And so far, much to my surprise, the number one position with a staggering 174 votes is the Seiko Alchemist, followed closely by my personal favorite, the SARB033, which is a keeper in my own collection. The SARB065, which I think we're going to be reviewing today. The Turtle coming in 4th place. Then rather surprisingly, the Japanese version of the SKX coming in at 5th. Then the Sumo, and then the rest of it. Completely dominated by Seiko at the top. I mean, the only... somebody obviously didn't read the somebody put a Vostok, you know, even though I did say, please make sure you read carefully, blah, blah, blah. Oh, well. So that's a shame. But anyway, Orient Ray... Wow, didn't do that too well. Citizen, Skyhawk, all the rest of them. A lot of watches put in. Quite surprising, the Alchemist win, considering it's a bright green. And green tends to kind of be a bit of a divisive colour. It is gorgeous, don't get me wrong. It's an absolutely terrific watch. But rather surprised that it won by such a landslide. I was really expecting the SARB033 or the SKX. But anyway, there we go. That's the results. So guys, those are the top watches, according to the Urban Gentry Facebook group, that are the best, or the favourites, so to speak. A quick thank you for everyone taking part. Anyway, let's roll the intro and get on with the show. Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Today we are finally going to be taking a look at those beautiful Seiko, the Japanese domestic models that I unboxed I think a week or so ago. I've decided to do the review of them together so you can kind of get a closer look at how they differ, the similarities, the differences, that kind of thing. Now, wristwatch check. I am indeed wearing the SARB033. This is the watch that started it all with my love affair with the SARB and the SARG line. It's a highly overlooked sweet spot in the Seiko range. Japanese domestic models, but now, you know, thanks to Long Island Watches and a few other stores, you can now get them internationally, which is fantastic. If you want to save a bit on import tax and all the rest of it, I suggest check out Long Island Watches. I'll put a link to all of these watches in the description. Big thank you to Mark, a shout out to Mark at Long Island Watches for making this possible and lending them in for review. It's going to be very sad to see them go, but of course I've still got my SARB033. This is from my own collection. I've also included it in the review so you can get an idea, because this is a 38. The watches we are looking at today are all a little bit larger at the 40 millimeters size, but that's what you guys requested, so as always I try and deliver on your demands. So anyway, without further ado, let's switch perspectives and have a closer look. Today I'm finally getting to review this wonderful group of Seiko automatics. Now these are all GDMs, which of course stands for Japanese domestic models. Now included in the group I've put my little Seiko SARB. This is the SARB033, which I've had for I don't know how long, a pretty long time, over a year. When did I get this? I can't even remember, but this is the watch that really opened my eyes to this kind of sweet spot in the Japanese domestic market. And they really are outstanding quality, and begs the question, why aren't they available internationally? But, you know, if you don't want to pay the taxes, you can buy some of them from Long Island watches, and I'll include the link to all the watches included down below. First of all, let me just explain, if you didn't see the unboxing, check out the unboxing. I'll leave a link to that as well, my initial impressions, and you get to see the boxes that came in and the original straps. So just to go through the models, this particular one is the SARB011, and this is a more kind of sporty tool watch. We'll go into the specifics in just a moment. Then we have the SARB065, or also known as the cocktail. This is a very dressy number. Now you'll notice I've changed the straps, and that's because I'm really not a fan of the straps that a lot of these Seikos come with. But again, you know, at this price range, they cut corners a little bit with the straps. Having said that, the SARB011 here came with quite a nice calf strap, but the cocktail came with just a standard leather strap with blue stitching. Was not a fan of it, so I've actually put it on a collar red. Of course I put it on a collar red, but I've chosen the blue one to match the kind of light blue tone on that dial, just to really kind of dress it up a bit. I think it matches quite well. And then last of all, we have the SDGM001, also known as the Brightz. I'm not quite sure what the name suggests, but it certainly is an absolutely stunning model. So let's go through the similarities of these watches first. And basically they all contain the same movement. If I just show you here, they all have exhibition case backs, and they are all Japanese domestic models. Now this is the movement we're talking about. This is the 6R15C, and this is a 23 jewel movement operating at 28,800 beats per hour with a very impressive power reserve of 50 hours. This was introduced in about 2006 and is a derivative of the 7S26 movement. And I've come to know this movement very, very well in my little Sarb here, which you see here. These, I must point out, if you're the first time you're watching these have been lent in. This particular one is from my own collection. This is one of my keeper watches. I just adore this watch. So I've got to know this movement very, very well. The impressive power reserve is basically, they call this a high beat movement, but there is a little bit of stutter to it. There is a big advantage of it not being as many beats per minute, as being as smooth. It has less wear on all the components and parts in the movement. So these actually will last a lot longer than something that is truly high beat. I mean, I know they call this high beat, but let's be honest, there's a lot more smoother sweeps in more higher quality movements. But this movement, I gotta say, is absolutely fantastic. They say the accuracy is about plus 25, minus 15, but actually I found that to be every 3 days. So all the ones I've tried have been a lot more accurate than that. Great thing about this particular movement is they all have manual wind, and of course it is hackable, and that goes for all of them. So exactly the same movement, all the same properties you'll find, and of course they all have the date, and they're all positioned exactly in the same place at the 3 o'clock. Let's talk about the cocktail first. Now we'll get the dimensions out of the way, and I must stress there is sellotape on the calipers so not to damage the watch. We're looking at a diameter of about 40 millimeters, thickness of 13, lug to lug we're looking at 47, and then the lug width we're looking at 20. So a really nice size, a little bit bigger than the SARB033. I think this is about a 38. But you guys have been asking alternatives to the 033 in a bit of a larger size, and I think this particular, the cocktail, is the one to go for. So we have Hardlex crystal, and it's a beautiful domed Hardlex crystal. Hardlex gets a bit of a bad rap. It's not that bad. It's a little bit tougher than acrylic, obviously not as tough as sapphire. On the back is the same Hardlex as well, with this screw down case back. On none of these models do we have screw down crowns, so just a point, just to get that out of the way. There is no loom whatsoever on this particular model. but we do have these beautiful applied hour markers that do kind of catch the light very nicely. They have the detail and quality is just absolutely gorgeous. Now, the first thing you'll notice is that radiant sunburst pattern on there. It's just amazing. It really kind of harkens back to the kind of the 50s. Those triangle type arrowhead markers, applied markers, do remind me of a kind of Cadillac. Beautiful sword hands, applied logo, signed in that lovely italic automatic 21 jewels, and of course Japan at the bottom. And that is something very important about the domestic models. These are all entirely made in Japan and all in-house as well, so really cool. Little framed date window at 3 o'clock in white, very tastefully done, and then a very subtle little minutes and second track running around the outside just completes it beautifully. I got to say, the dial is exquisite, very elegant. The way it plays with the light, it's a beautiful dress watch. The missing loom doesn't really matter because it is a dress watch. The case is done very simply, a little less involved than the polishing on the SARB033. We haven't got as many beveled edges and different textures as we have on the SARB. It's a little bit more simple, but I think that's it's going for that more classic look. It's even more classic than the SARB033. High polished all over. In fact, there's no brushed surfaces on this whatsoever, so it definitely gleams in the light. It's absolutely gorgeous. So entirely stainless steel, obviously. We got 15 meters water resistant here, whereas all the rest are 100 meters. But again, for a dress watch, this is purely a dress watch. You can't really expect anything more. Negatives, well, you don't have any loom, and also the strap it came with was I was not a fan. But of course, this being around about the $400 or under the $400 mark, it's an absolute steal. You're getting an incredibly luxurious watch for that money, and you spend 30-40 bucks to get a handmade luxury leather strap from Collareb. Just completes it. I'll do a quick wrist shot for you. So there you go on the wrist, and on my tiny little wrist it does wear quite well. It's not the thinnest of dress watches. I would have loved it to be a little bit thinner. Personally, it's a bit too big for me. I prefer the size of the 033, but it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you're looking for a dress watch a little bit larger than the 033, then this is definitely the one. The negatives, well, I think if we look at the back here, there's quite a bit of extra depth here. I think it could have been thinner. Would have been much more, a little bit more sophisticated being thinner, especially, you know, if you're wearing as a dress watch to slide under the cuff. The slightly domed crystal makes it a little bit taller, but I think actually they could have made the case a bit thinner, but really minor detail. Of course, we have that beautiful signed crown with that S there engraved, deeply engraved there. That we see on all the domestic models. Absolutely gorgeous. Also, I think you can hear it winding. You can hear it winding when you move. Not so much on the others, but that's what you come to expect at an entry, higher entry to mid-level type watch. Gorgeous nonetheless. So moving on, let's have a look at the SARB011. Now this is more of a tool watch, and the first thing you'll notice is these beautiful big loomed markers and numerals, and it is all loomed, which is fantastic. I'm not quite sure what the loom they use, but it is that Seiko loom that they're famous for. So let's take a look at the loom shot right now. And as you can see, it's that famous loom that Seiko is so notorious for. It's just absolutely amazing. I love the big numerals, just stunning, and it's so easy to decipher the minute from the hour, and the counterbalance on the seconds does a fantastic job as well. Very nicely equally spread, gorgeous. Anyway, back to the studio. And, I've put it on this one-piece German, I can't remember what the brand of this, Echt lever there. I did a review of this, so have a look at my strap videos. It's a fantastic, and I got this from Holben's. I think it just suits the more kind of tooly aesthetic. It's very Explorer-esque, shall we say, with these numerals, but at the same time it's got its own character. I love that dash. I originally thought it was red in the pictures I saw online, but actually it's more of a kind of fluorescent pinkish red than just a straight deep red. Got minutes running around the outside. Again, applied logo, very nicely done. The date this time is in negative, in black, which I think kind of suits it. No screw down crown, the same crown basically, with that beautiful engraving. The case this time is a little bit different. We've got matted on the top and then high polished on the side, and then a matted bezel, which I think kind of is more in keeping with its tool aesthetic. Beautiful beveled edges, a little bit more attention to detail than the cocktail. Let's just get the dimensions out of the way. So we're looking at 41 millimeters in diameter, depth of about 12.5 millimeters, lug to lug 47, lug width we're looking at 20. So the diameter is a little bit bigger than the cocktail. That's because the case kind of juts out a little bit here. We have improved water resistance of 100 meters, which, you know, I think is fitting. This would be excellent as a kind of everyday watch. I don't think you couldn't wear it for smart. It's a little bit tool watch for that, but nonetheless it's gorgeous all the same. What's quite interesting, I'm not sure if you can see that, but the hands are actually blacked out. Instead of blued hands they are actually blacked out. The frame also for the date is matching, blacked out as well. Again, we have the same automatic italic font there, Japan right at the bottom. Very tastefully done. I really like this one. My only complaint, I think it should have been a bit smaller. It would have been nice to have it in the 38 size. It's a little bit too big for me personally, but you know, I gear more towards the smaller watches. Okay, let's have a quick wrist shot. Okay, and here we are with the wrist shot now. It does wear quite well. It wears a little bit thinner than the cocktail, strangely enough, but very legible with those big numbers. It's just so legible even at a distance. It's quite a fun watch considering it's very kind of understated, but those huge numbers are just unmistakably readable at any distance. I think that's a really cool thing. I could see mountaineers wearing this, you know, especially if you're wearing goggles or something. It would be very, very useful. But yeah, I really like the way they've done the 12 and 6 a little bit larger. It's got its own character, definitely. It's a very cool watch indeed. The dial itself is just a very matte black dial, hardly reflective at all. The crystal is sapphire, but we've got hard legs on the back, which is absolutely fine. This particular model I think is the newest out of the lot, released in 2014 if I remember correctly. Very cool look about it. It's one of those Seikos that, you know, gets overlooked, and this particular one I think goes for around about 400, the same as the cocktail there. Okay, so last but not least, the most expensive watch out of this three, or out of this four I should say. This is from a step up from the SARG and SARB line. This is the SDGM001, also known as the Brightz. Now this particular one comes on a bracelet, and I've got to say off the bat it's a lot heavier. What we have here is stainless steel, but it does have what Seiko call Deer Shield coating, which is a special coating they put on top of the steel and makes it I think about 2 or 3 times as hard as steel and more scratch resistant, substantially tougher, which is quite unusual considering it is a dress watch. But the advantage is that it's going to look gleaming for, you know, it's going to look absolutely mint for a very, very long time. So quite heavy. We're talking about 165 grams, I think it is. We of course have sapphire on the front, the same display back as we see on all the others. We have this beautiful double buttoned deployment here on the clasp. Solid end links, which you'd expect at this price range. We're talking about around about the $750 mark, I think. It's incredibly solid feeling. I've got to say off the bat, the bracelet, you know, I'm not personally not a massive fan of this bracelet, but it is done impeccably well with this beautiful polished parts and then little accents with high polish and then matted in between. Signed clasp quality certainly is there. This does come with 100 meters water resistance, and another little detail, they've put a I think it's onyx, I'm not sure, but I think it's a lab created crystal there. It's a little cabochon in the crown, which is, you know, if you've seen Cartiers, this is something Cartier do, and dress watches used to do a lot more in the early days. Just a little kind of decoration really for the crown. It doesn't really serve any purpose apart from being pretty to look at. So I really find that endearing. It's a kind of throwback to a more elegant age. This time we have the same sword hands as the SARB033, but we have a blued second hand. This lovely, rich, cream, off-white colour with a sunburst pattern. And then I love the way they've got a little bit of just that little step up into the second and minute track running around the outside. And automatic, this time in capitals written there. Very simple, framed date there at 3 o'clock, obviously. And beautiful stick applied baton markers there for the hours. The finishing is unbelievable. It's really, really high quality finishing we have here. A lot more involved with all these beautiful beveled edges, huge beveled edges. And quite unusually, we've got drilled lug holes, which is it's a nice touch. So you can really change the straps quite easily. Let's get the dimensions quickly out of the way. We've got a diameter of about 40, just over 40. Thickness of 11, which is really nice and thin. Lug to lug, we're looking at 48, so a little bit bigger than the others. Lug width, we're looking at 20. So a little bit thinner, which I think is a bit more refined. And actually you can see that if we look on the case back, you can see it's not as deep as the others. Screw down case back, of course. Flat crystal, we've got sapphire, obviously. Really nicely done. I just love that dial. I think this is my favorite dial of the lot. I think it's a little bit more, even a little step up from the cocktail. I love the markers on the cocktail, but the Brightz I think just has the edge with that extra little track running around the outside and the double stick at the 12. No loom, of course, but this is a dress watch. This has definitely got the most beautiful case and the highest quality finishing. Just pop it on the wrist and have a quick look. So as you can see, even though it is the same diameter as the rest of them, it wears a lot smaller, I think mainly because the curved case, also it being thinner. This really is the ultimate dress watch. How does it compare to the SARB? Well, personally, obviously I prefer the SARB size. But I've got to say, it is definitely a step up in quality. And for a larger dress watch, it wears very, very comfortably. I think if you had a medium to large wrist, it would be absolutely perfect. I'm not into the lighter dials, but this is so rich. It's almost the kind of gold. It's almost gold, but not quite. It's a very particular colour. And I just look at the way it plays with the light. It's absolutely gorgeous. Love it. Is it worth almost double compared to the others? Well, I hate to say it, I think it almost is. I think the quality certainly is there. I don't know if it comes across in the camera, but the finishing is just unbelievable. I mean, it's really good on the SARB, don't get me wrong, but, you know, this is a step up. This is a true mid-range piece. Very luxurious. I mean, if you put that on a collar ebb, my God, absolutely gorgeous. I think it's a great way to add a fantastic high quality dress watch without, you know, spending a lot of money, especially if you're not going to be wearing dress watches all the time, you know, just special occasions. I love the way the contrast between matted and then high polished. It's just, I don't know if you can see that, but this puts some Swiss pieces to shame. It really does. It's incredible, absolutely gorgeous, and you can just make out the blue of that second hand when the light, there you go, when the light touches it. Beautiful applied Seiko. Also, if you're not into this particular color dial, don't forget there's the SDGM003, which is black, so same textured radiant sunburst pattern, but in black, so really, really cool. You know, the great thing about these watches is, you know, you spend, you know, $400, $600, $700, and you know, 15 years down the line, they're still going, you know, and they're incredibly cheap to service. The movement is amazing. Yeah, sure, it's not the most accurate of movements, but at the end of the day, guys, it's a trooper. It's a solid, reliable thing. I've got quite accurate time out of mine, so I'm very happy with my SARB. This is still definitely keeping my collection. I prefer the little size. If we just look at the size comparison, yeah, it's substantially larger, the Brightz, but yeah, I think it's great that Seiko can offer that difference in size. I think there's a Seiko for everybody. There really is. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Let's take it back to the studio. Okay, welcome back, guys. So, as you can see, I've got to say my pick of the bunch has got to be the Brightz. Its finishing, its quality, punches way above its weight. I mean, honestly, the finishing is as good as, I would say, now I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this, but trust me, the finishing of this model easily compares to an Omega. That's how beautifully it's finished. Now, of course, the movement is not anything specially decorated. It's a very workhorse movement, a small kind of Côte de Genève finishing on the rotor, but nothing over the top. It's almost, you could say it's plain Jane, a little bit boring, but it keeps the cost down. And at the end of the day, guys, you've got to remember, these movements, they're going to go for 10, 15 years without a service. They're capable of doing that. These movements are built like tanks. They could take the punishment. And what I love about the Brightz, and I think this is my pick of the bunch definitely, is that, you know, with that Deer Shield coating on it, it's going to look amazing for years and years to come. So not only is the movement more robust, can take a beating and be a lot cheaper than a luxury watch to maintain, the actual watch itself is a lot more robust. So in many ways this is a great watch if you want to add a dress piece to your collection, but you know, you don't want to go overboard with the money. Now, is it worth, you know, spending twice as much money compared to the Cocktail, for example? I think it is. You're paying for the double water resistance, the beautiful finishing, the little details like the cabochon on the crown, all these little nuances. Yes, it's the same movement inside, but really it's a much more finished, refined piece, definitely. I think that's the word to describe it. But that's the great thing about these Seikos, is that, you know, it doesn't cost that much to add an outstanding watch to your collection, something that punches way above its weight. You know, these are comparable to mid-range, even, you know, nipping at the heels of some luxury timepieces as well. I'm going to leave it there. Let me know your thoughts, queries, questions, opinions, all the rest of it down in the comments. I'll include the links in the description. Please let me know which are your favourites. Also nominate any other Seikos you want me to get into review. I've got Seagull coming up. I've got a few more Orients as well, so stay tuned for that. So much more to come. It's all very, very exciting. Anyway, guys, thank you very, very much for watching. Please don't forget to give me that like. If you enjoyed it, found it useful, it really does help me. And as always, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.